When it comes to Cobweb, it's one of those mystery horror films that have so much going for it as it builds up to something, but unfortunately it squanders the ending. To summarize the film, Peter is a kid who isn't the happiest. He's bullied at school, his mom's very overprotective, and his dad's a disciplinarian, so he's without some type of outlet or means to kind of deal with all that's going on. That is until he gets a substitute teacher named Miss Divine, who's rather nice. And on top of that, there's this voice that's coming from the wall that seems to be friendly. Now, originally it's not clear if this is just maybe part of Peter's imagination and he's conjuring up this voice as some means of comfort, especially since neither of his parents hear it. But as time goes on, it becomes clear that this voice in the wall, especially as this voice reveals its backstory, there's probably more to it than meets the eye. So it should be known when it comes to Cobweb, it is rated R, and that's because there's cursing, there's blood, dismembered and just brutalized bodies, alongside people getting poisoned. And I should also note there's projectile vomiting when it comes to the whole blood thing. But as for anything else, there's no sexual content, and I don't recall any notable amount of smoking or drinking, so I want to say it's not in the film, but it could be in just like from very few scenes. Though, to be perfectly honest with you, the violence in the film might have just been far more like notable imprint level imagery than someone smoking or drinking. So, getting to the review portion, the highlight and sole highlight for me is that there is a certain creep factor there. The way that this film operates, it wants to build up more than it wants to just do jump scare, jump scare, jump scare, violent imagery or something like that. It wants you to feel a bit uncomfortable. It wants you to question whether this thing in the wall is part of Peter's imagination or not. And as it starts to reveal the story, it makes you want to question, is this a demon? Is this Peter kind of projecting something because of how extreme some of his dad's discipline is, like locking him in the basement? Heck, it even makes you really want to question when it comes to how his mom and dad are these truly his biological parents or was he adopted? And when it comes to the whole basement situation and how it looks down there, maybe when it came to their first child or another child, they accidentally killed them, and maybe Peter's aware of some of this, or maybe partly aware. It's in the beginning, it's hard to say, and that's where the kind of mystery element comes in, but as noted in the overview, it has this wonderful build. It brings up all this anticipation, but then it kind of falls off, which is the low point for us. The ending of this, it just doesn't pay off. Yes, as somebody who watches a lot of horror films, we do appreciate the violence that is shown in terms of people getting their heads ripped off and all that, but unfortunately, what Cobwebs doesn't give you is a resolution. When it comes to the villain, you understand their motive, but their story doesn't end. And it's not even in a general, like, let's set up a sequel kind of way, but it just presents the idea that Peter didn't defeat them, that what he does to the villain is not going to stop them. And as we get like a sort of montage afterwards, it's like they're not going to stop, and I don't think Peter has any way to stop them beyond, escalating things beyond what this movie offers, like in terms of either getting a gun or really doing something brutal to the villain, who I don't think Peter has it in him to possibly do that to. And even though he does get somebody to help them, they also aren't somebody who would try to really do anything, since the person's too dumb to even call the damn cops to try to help Peter in the first place. But we're not going to get into how stupid some of the characters act, because at this point, that's something you just have to accept when you watch a horror movie. With that said, I have to admit, when it comes to the villain reveal, especially their face, I have mixed feelings. And mainly because I just don't know why the villain had to look like that with this weird CGI look, considering there was just no reason for them to look. I'm trying to think of what's the best example, because I want to say they kind of look like the Oddworld being, but there's also some monster that I keep thinking about beyond the Oddworld lead character who they remind me of, but it's not coming to mind right now. But either way, I feel like once they revealed that face, that was the beginning of the downhill of this movie. Because that just, as much as you have to respect visual effect artists and all they do, since most of us can't do what they do, I wish they really went back to the drawing board with that, and rather than do CGI, do prosthetics or just practical makeup. Because the over reliance on CGI just for general things is just ridiculous at this point. Overall, when it comes to Cobweb, I think it's a film that definitely had potential, but like so many movies that had potential, when it comes to wrapping things up, it faltered, it failed. And while I wouldn't say it was so bad that it took away from everything that came before, it does make you wish that there was a director's cut out there, and not the director's cut that adds on more details, but rather cut things away and maybe reorganize things a bit just so that it could be a better product.